Warframe! It's a game that has a special place in my heart. I was 16 when I first played it, and despite the many years that have passed, I still have no idea what I'm doing. I have a love-hate relationship with this game, despite it being so fun. To get to that fun, you have to spend 3 days grinding for a stupid heart. And then, takes 2 more days to build that stupid heart. I'm looking at you, Necromech. When I stopped playing the game, I was just finishing the Heart of Deimos, and from what I can remember, it wasn't too memorable for me. The Arcwind questline was fine, I guess, but nothing really stood out for me after that. I'm not too heavy into the lore at this point, but it was interesting enough for me to finish the quest. As for my favorite quest, it would absolutely go to the Duviri Paradox. Every single thing about it was so fun and refreshing. Of course, some of it had a learning curve to it. I didn't really like the combat, but the atmosphere, the cutscenes, and the final battle were just amazing. I remember spending an hour just talking to my partner about it and how much I loved this questline. I'm someone who likes to go through the main quest lines for major plot points and then be done with it, but I have to say that I spent the most time playing Duviri. I may not be a ninja in this quest, but I do have a kick-ass battle horse to ride into battle. Duviri felt like it was a really nice fever dream because of how out of place it felt within Warframe. And I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean that in a, oh my god, D actually slaps so hard when they want to. Playing as a drifter and learning to escape this endless time loop through the questlines was such a treat. I don't want to get too in the nitty-gritty of this questline. I highly recommend dipping your toes into it if you already haven't. I like to know how everyone feels about it. So this is the part of the video where I tell you that, hey, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, and I go kind of in depth on the missions, so view at your own discretion. I obviously want to hear y'all's thoughts on each of these missions that I played and how you felt about going through this. I am very newbie, so I want to hear some veteran opinions on how they first felt about when these missions came out. So yeah. I didn't really know what to expect for this questline. All I was really ever told was level up your Warframe, level up your ship, and good luck, right? Honestly, I was treated really well. I really enjoyed the first 2 missions where you play as Call and Viso R. I wish DE did more of that. I know that you can play as Call in Veil Breaker. I just haven't gotten around to it because it's a side quest and I've been doing all of the Nightwave stuff to try and get those good old Forma and mods and Warframe slots. I will say that I did have trouble fighting the Jackal, but that's because of my garbage gameplay. But other than that, I had a fun time taking a different perspective other than the Tenno. I knew this would be more story heavy, and I'm actually really enjoying the intergalactic space diplomacy that's happening here. Ballast being the new ruler and seeing how shitty things are really cool to see. Sucks for Lotus, of course. That's my girl. We gotta get her back. We did get her back, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Not having a Warframe to engage in combat really allows me to take my time with stuff, and I actually prefer that. I like running around and just killing enemies, but I also like taking my time and seeing all of the beautiful level design that DE has created for this mission. It's really interesting seeing the Drifter do random shit to try and get their Warframe back, and I ultimately ended up choosing the Drifter for the rest of the mission. I know you can change back to the Operator, but honestly, I think it's more fitting that the Drifter takes the helm now. After defeating the Archons, I honestly thought they were a little repetitive, but they were still fun nonetheless. I think the Owl one was the least fun, and the Snake was the most fun. Seeing Lotus take the forefront of the lore was surprisingly emotional for me. I never thought that Lotus had such an importance to the lore until now, and I think that her story is a sad one too. Her family didn't give a fuck about her, used her, and was mistaken for another woman. Her identity will be forever shattered into fragments of these pieces, and the final choice that you get to make for her was honestly devastating for me. Ballast was okay for a villain. I didn't really care for him. I just thought he looked cool. I was more interested in the other characters. Orders by far was fun to see for this quest, and I like the new look. He's adorable, and I wish I could have him following me around in real life. I think he'd get a kick out of watching Kitchen Nightmares with me. To conclude, the Noor was an exceptional questline, and I'm so glad that I grinded away my frames before entering it. I ended up completing the whole thing with Caliban, and I think that's kind of funny because he summoned sentience to fight alongside him. He's one of the good ones, I guess. I'm glad you took this direction for this questline. It was a fresh experience like Duviri, and I had a lot of fun getting immersed in the world. When you take away all the grinding, the game can be kinda good. Angels of Zariman was such an interesting continuation to the Tenno's backstory, and it helped me understand my place in this wild, wild story. In short, because of the wacky stuff that took place during the New War, a ship called the Zariman appears, and that gets the attention of the Corpus, Grineer, and us, so we go and investigate. We learn that it's inhabited by the Holdfast, which is a group of 4 people that were changed by the powers of the Void. They are fighting off turning into Void Angels, which is an enemy type that players farm augments on. Since they aren't entirely human anymore, they have these really awesome markings on their bodies to signify how the Void has changed them. Okay, I just looked back at my recordings folder and I realized I have nothing of this quest recorded, so we're going to use little baby cutouts of them and I will recreate what happened. So, first person we meet on the ship is Quinn, which is the leader of the Holdfast. He is also the captain of the Zariman, and although he was trying to help the kids on the ship during the void jump accident, they blew him up and he manifested through a thing called conceptual embodiment. From my understanding, the void takes the strongest emotions from any physical form, whether it be from thoughts, memories, or a really bad breakup, and creates a reaction, such as resurrections, where people are able to have some of their memories, and they also kind of have the chance to turn into void angels. Next person we end up talking to is Yanta. She's the one who approved the void jump in the first place, and this caused the accident. She's a tragic character riddled with guilt and regret for taking the action she did. Because of the possibility that she stayed back in Lua, she believes that none of this would have happened, and she is jealous of that version of her. We're able to trade void plumes for staining when we talk to her. Side note, Warframe lore is one of the coolest things to dig your feet into. I'm currently writing this at 2 in the morning, and I'm now truly realizing how messed up the folk on the Zariman truly have it. Death is a possibility, but they are the few who escaped it and now roam the ship in hopes of getting a better understanding of what's taking over them. I don't think I can coherently summarize Homebask as a character, so I'm just going to be reading the Wikipedia page for her. Homebask was appointed to be in charge of the homestead when the Zariman 10-0 reached the Tau system. During the arrest among the colonists before the void jump accident, she deliberately sabotaged the ship's agricultural biomes in hope that the Orkin would reconsider the order to perform a long void jump to Tau. This attempt backfired as the Orkin became even more determined and the children on board began to starve due to impeded food production. After the accident, Homebask was one of the few adults on the Zariman who didn't get affected and driven insane from void exposure before their death during the void jump accident. During the attempt to save the children, she was torn to pieces by the adults that had gone insane and became feral. Yeah, the more I read about these characters, the more I just want to blow up the Orkin. I personally don't like Homebask due to their items being crazy expensive. I already hate doing the Zariman missions, and I'm not going to force myself to do all that crazy stuff just for a box and a chair. Finally, we have Cavallero. He's an asshole, which I get, but come on, man, I just want a weapon. I came here to save your ass. He's a security detail for the ship, and he's kinda shitty. Under Quinn's orders, he'd round up the folks who protested the void jump and execute the leaders. When the jump did end up happening, and he saw the horrors of the void, he blew himself up with a grenade and was reborn through the magical powers of the void. There was a final member named Kira, but they turned into a void angel, and sadly we have to defeat her as part of the last quest in the storyline. There's also an entire ARG that pertained to her, but I don't have the mental capacity to recap any of that. Now that we ended the roll call, the actual Zariman is beautiful, and I honestly wish there was more to offer from this place. I hope we come back to it at some point, but for now, it really just is for arcanes, which I don't particularly use since I'm a newbie player. Sometimes you'll have Nightwave missions on the Zariman, like defeating Void Angels, which aren't too difficult once you get into the rhythm of beating them. I think other than that, the only thing really going for it is trying to farm for Varuna. The missions themselves aren't too fun, honestly. I feel like they're too time consuming and there's a lot of stuff on your screen. It just gets a little too much for me. Overall, my experience with the Zariman is nothing out of the ordinary compared to Duviri or the New War, but it's nice to have, you know? More content means more stuff you can farm, which means more time to spend. So this quest is, I can't really tell if I liked it or not. There's a lot of high points for me, like discovering who Human Lloyd is, but I'm still a little confused about Albrecht as a character. During this point, I didn't really know if he was more of a vigilante type character or if he was like a bad guy. I find my answer in the hex, so don't worry. The short and sweet of it is that after the events of the New War, the Void creates something called the Murmur, which is associated with the Man in the Wall. There are these limb-like things that are able to climb onto each other and create some pretty horrific stuff. When I first was fighting them, I thought they were f***ing disgusting. The Murmur is growing stronger, and we come to find out that Albrecht was the one who's been fighting them off for a while. There's also something called the Callimos sequence, which is essentially a contingency plan for the Entrati to protect their laboratories in case something like this were to happen. The cat is also called Callimos, and that is the most important fact about all of this. We see the original Lloyd, a very handsome man who is very much in love with Albrecht. I like his sass, but I'll always love the robot version of him. After going through this mission, we get to explore Albrecht's laboratories, and honestly this is my favorite setting in the entire game. From the enemies to the architecture and the horrific scenery in the background, I loved every second of it. There's so much more that I didn't go over, and I truly believe that you should play this part for yourself. There is part of the mission where you go into the world of 1999 and play as Arthur, and it's a cool experience when I played it firsthand. I think going in blind is one of the best ways to experience this game. As for the mission in this portion, I thought they were pretty easy, but the running back and forth in some sections were pretty redundant, but that's not saying much for any mission in Warframe. After this quest is finished, we get to play through Jade Shadows and Lotus Eaters. Lotus Eaters is a pretty short 5-minute cutscene where it's just Lotus receiving a phone call from the Man in the Wall, and I chose the Drifter to be the one to answer. Now, I get it's supposed to be the Murmurs eating away at her mind, but I think it's funny if she's just really addicted to Candy Crush and she's just like on a level 1000. Jade Shadows was an interesting take on the idea of grief and motherhood, and I'm actually really happy that we got this as a questline. In this questline, we play as the Stalker, and we come to find out that we've been nursing Jade. We try and give her medicine, but it's rejected by her. We head out and raid a corpus ship for some more medicine, and we meet this fine woman who detects us raiding her place. We get back and realize the medicine that we stole isn't working. So we talk to Hun Hao about what to do, and he tells us to go seek out the Tenno's help. We sneak past Ortis and we get to the Tenno. We catch them, ask for help, and of course they're terrified, confused as to why we're here, but ends up helping us in the end. They say because Jade is part infested, our best bet is hunting down a Juggernaut. Of course, Captain Zito catches on and is adamant about tracking us down and restraining us. We get back to Jade, and it's revealed that Jade is pregnant. We have to play a minigame where we have to time our presses with the contractions. The minigame is done, and sadly, Jade fades away, and we see an infant in Stalker's hands. Their kid empowers the Stalker's scythe, and he attempts to escape the corpus and gets stopped by Captain Zito. As the Stalker walks towards them, Zito hears the child's cry and immediately stops shooting and lets them pass by. After this ends, we get to name the child. I chose Cyrus. A name chosen by Jade is a perfect way of remembering her by. This mission pulled my heartstrings because of how we see Stalker in a different light. He's a soldier and only knows how to attack, but with Jade, he's calmed down and is able to change his ways of being that old, loyal dog. There's so many characters in Warframe that don't get enough limelight, but I'm glad that Stalker got his own side quest. And finally, we have caught up to the final mission, so far, the Hex. This questline was so fun to get through, and I got through it pretty quickly. Some highlights for me were definitely online. I'm not into boy bands, but the fictional ones are alright. I know I glaze DE a lot, but the set designers are doing absolute magic on the field. Everything about the setting is amazing. I love the tech rock, I love the proto frames, just everything. We start the mission by seeing a countdown on New Year's Eve, which I also happened to be playing this mission on, waiting for the ball to drop, so it was kind of funny in a way. The countdown goes to 0, and when we get to 1, we get one big boom. Boom! We go back 24 hours and see Arthur in the Helvania Mall, and his arm takes over and starts typing stuff on the nearby computer. It's a lead to find Albrecht. We meet up with the rest of the Hex, and we see all the proto-frames. Amir, Aoi, Quincy, Letitia, and Eleanor. Arthur wants to leave on his own, but the rest of the group joins him. Letitia and Eleanor stay behind to watch the base. We fight off some Skaldra and see Major Rusalka trying to catch our ass. We are the coolest of them all, so we fight a tank. We get knocked out, and we see Callimos and Albrecht. Arthur chases after him, but is stopped by Tekrot. They're like the infested of this world, and they honestly look really cool. We see this little shop of horrors creature spit out Excalibur, and with a short duel, the Drifter tries to jump into Arthur, but he denies this, and we show him who we really are. Some stuff happens with Albrecht and Major. She manages to catch him and tries to interrogate him, taunting him by turning into our favorite twink. Now back to the Drifter, they're getting interrogated by the Hex. And Amir gives us the cool nickname of Marty. We try our best to describe how we got here, and we're willing to help and find Albrecht. We encounter Kalamos once more and end up going into Albrecht's back room. We use the computer that's there and we learn that the nuclear explosion that happened is the power source that Albrecht is using to contain the murmur and escape the loop. Some more stuff happens in between, like fighting off some enemies, riding in the back of the truck that Awie's driving, and using an RPG to blow up the Major. Major is suspected to be controlled by the man in the wall, and we are told by Albrecht to execute her. I said we'd be no different, and then he scolded me for it, which in hindsight, he was right about this one thing, but whatever. The man in the wall shows up and takes us away. The rest of the next few missions, we play as the Hex, well, besides Quincy, because he decided to leave due to him understanding that the odds are stacked against us. They go off and try and control the Tech Rock, and Eleanor goes off and eats a Hive Mind Queen as a light snack. We get back to the Drifter and we're on the Zariman. The Indifferent shows us what ends up happening to the Hex, and we have a short conversation with them, and then get shot by Albrecht. The next scene, we're with Letty and Eleanor, and the stuff that the Indifferents told us about ends up happening, which is also incredibly brutal, and I was left speechless towards the end. We have a final conversation with Albrecht, and he believes that he's in the right, and then he shoots us in the chest. But we're the f***ing Drifter, baby. I completely forgot about the Drifter's powers, so this entire end scene did not click until the spirals showed up. It's like everything came together and I had the biggest smile on my face. Now, if you made it this far in the video, you obviously know that there's going to be spoils ahead, but here's my raw reaction to the final scene for the Hex.
No, I can save them.
Not unless you know them.
Bro, what? Oh my god! No fucking way!
The entire questline was a 10 out of 10 for me, and I honestly feel so much genuine joy by the end. There's so much misery in the prior questlines that I truly believe in the Drifter and that we're going to be able to save the universe and hopefully the multiverse. What a wonderful experience, and it only took 200 hours to get to. Yippee! So that's all the main quests done. What now? I'm not a veteran player by any means. It wasn't until 2 months ago I got my first Prime frame, and I haven't really updated or touched the mod section of this game. But I dedicated now 230 hours of my life to this game, and I feel as though it was moving enough to make a video about it. This game has carved a section into my heart as one of my favorite multiplayer games. The community is so different back then, and I no longer feel isolated by how I play or by what I play. My wife and I play this game on our downtimes, and we use this game to just relax or build our characters up. I farm Nightwave, they farm bounties with me. Now, of course, Warframe isn't all sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of stuff that I don't find fun, and of course, it's time-gated content, and the grind can just get too much sometimes. The Necromech, for example, took me a little over 3 days to complete, and farming for the Prime parts, it took, like, I guess, over the span of a week, and that was one of the most painful experiences that I've ever had to do. Relic farming and then cracking relics is one of the stupidest mechanics in this game, but I get that they had to do that because it's a free-to-play game. The lore itself can be kind of confusing, and I had to reference the wiki several times throughout the script to wrap my head around anything. The mastery rank up missions are also a pain in the ass if you go in blind. They recently changed it so that you're able to replay them as many times until you pass, but I feel as though this feature should have been added from the start. But yeah, overall I think Warframe is a stellar game and I definitely recommend folks getting into it, or at least watch lore videos on. The community is awesome and always willing to help the newer players learn the ropes and get a handle of things. The Tenno-Gen and Tenno art is some of the most sincere pieces of work I've come across, and I'm really happy that people are getting into it. For many, this game is still niche compared to Destiny 2, but I honestly think that Destiny should learn a thing or two about Warframe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the other side. Please leave a comment, a like, or let me know if you'd like to see more videos about this. Whether it be Warframe or longer videos about me talking about my favorite games, I'm open to suggestions, really. But yeah, I'll see you guys soon.